Olá a todos e a todas, bem-vindos e bem-vindas a este InfoDay. Estamos só aqui a terminar os preparativos, mas damos já as boas-vindas e vamos começar dentro de 1 ou 2 minutos, tá? Eu vou partilhar o meu PowerPoint. Right. Portanto, eu vou só dizer 2 ou 3 notas em português, porque apesar de tudo estamos em Portugal, mas por cortesia com um dos nossos parceiros, vamos falar, a sessão vai ser em inglês, misto em português, vocês podem fazer as perguntas, as questões, todas em português ou em inglês, como quiserem, quem está no YouTube, porque nós vamos comunicar Vamos comunicar nas duas línguas, mas por cortesia à nossa Ruth Ann Baxter, vamos falar sobretudo em inglês. Portanto, welcome to the Info Day of the project Prescribing Culture at the National Museum of Natural History and Science of the University of Lisbon, MUHNAC. I'm grateful for the time you took to be here with us, especially our guests, but also each one of you. My name is Marta Lourenço and I'm the director of the museum. I'm surrounded, you can see them, by our partners in the project, whom I will introduce in a minute, and also by some of the teams of psychology and mental health support of several universities. Professor Maria José Chambel, Pro-Rector of the University of Lisbon for Health and Wellbeing, is a strong supporter of our Prescribing Culture project. She presents her excuses as she planned to be here, but she couldn't because she had other commitment. So what is Prescribed Culture? What is this project? Why here? And why does it matter? I think that mental health and well-being concerns us all as citizens. We all know friends or family affected by stress, anxiety, burnout, social isolation. Ourselves, we have felt it at times, perhaps even too many times, in our busy urban lives, full of stress, noise, poor working conditions, economic uncertainty, concerns about our children, our family, our friends, or the future of societies and our planet. We know mental health issues are growing worldwide. We also know that people facing any type of discrimination, for example, race, ethnicity, gender, age, etc., are more exposed. We know women are more vulnerable than men. We know the poor are more vulnerable than the wealthy, the elderly, people of color, people with pre-existing disabilities, the excluded have more mental issues. The more unequal the society, the more mental health issues it has. That is why addressing the issue of mental health necessarily means addressing the issue of inclusion. And this is very, very important for us here at the museum. Citizens have always used cultural spaces, museums, galleries, botanic gardens, etc., as a refuge from the stress and anxieties of daily life. In museums, people can find silence, contemplation, tranquility, peace, quietness. They know that in museums they can travel through beauty, knowledge, and memory, and no questions will be asked. Museums are safe spaces. From our part, museums do certainly care for the well-being of visitors, but traditionally we do not think of museums as potential players in the health sector. It's a different matter. It requires a major shift in our values, attitudes, programs, partners, and even training. It was COVID-19 to a large extent that considerably raised our awareness as museum professionals. The interesting part is that healthcare systems around the world, starting with the World Health Organization, are increasingly recognized that culture, art, museums can enhance person-centered approaches to addressing health, well-being, and mental health problems. So it's as if two worlds apart are finally ready to meet with, I believe, extraordinarily important impacts. We're super, super excited about this. For the past 6 months, we've been working very hard to design with our partners the project Prescribing Culture at MUHNAC. In Portugal, we want to play a leading role in bridging these two worlds, the world of healthcare and the world of culture, in a more regular and permanent way. So what are our aims? And this is very important because we would very much welcome you after this info day, you sociologist, you psychologist, you GP, you researcher, to come to us and to examine ways that we can collaborate and, first of all, prescribe immediately. So in Portugal, we want to further integrate and embed culture in traditional healthcare. We want to raise awareness, actively contribute, understand, and at a later stage, start training museum professionals and healthcare workers to the uses of these spaces. We want museums in our country to realize that they can be players and start opening up, designing specific programs, establishing partnerships, collecting data, and developing research. So this is very important. It's not a passive position that we want. We want an active, to be active, to really answer the question, do museums and botanic gardens and general spaces of culture contribute to well-being? We want to know it qualitatively and quantitatively. We also want doctors, psychologists, social workers to realize museums and botanic gardens are natural partners, along with others in the cultural sector, to address health, well-being, and mental health problems. Researchers from across the academy to consider the intersection of museums and healthcare as an interesting theoretical and applied research subject. And we want museums, galleries, and botanic gardens to be included in national health policies. So it's an ambitious programs, definitely, but we need to start somewhere, and we've come up with an incredibly strong consortium. Of course, it helps that we have the collections, the spaces, the gardens, the museum, the places where people can, enjoy culture and at their own pace, and from the arts to the sciences, from history to architecture. We have collections and heritage of just about everything. But as I said, more importantly, we're not alone. We have built in the last months an incredibly strong consortium of Portuguese and also international partners. There's 2 universities involved, and more are willing to join. We hope they join more universities all over the country, in Portugal, and another university in the UK with its own program of prescribed culture, which is the University of Edinburgh, and the prescribed culture program. We also have an incredibly strong partner, which is Santa Casa da Misericórdia de Lisboa, and of course, working on the field with patients, with people in need, 2 USFs, the USF of Baixa and the USF of Almirante Reis. They are part of the Ministry of Culture of the Serviço Nacional de Saúde. So we have been preparing the infrastructure to start this, which we will start today. The National Museum, of course, the 2 botanical gardens that are managed by us, the Tropical Botanic Garden and the Lisbon Botanic Garden. Also, the Museum of São Roque, which is part of Santa Casa da Misericórdia de Lisboa, and the museums of the University of Edinburgh. So these are the spaces that will be receiving, welcoming not only the prescribees, but also researchers and healthcare workers in order to understand these dynamics and how it will all develop. Who are we targeting really? Of course, in a museum, lots of people enter through the door, very diverse communities, populations, but we are specifically targeting audiences that are considered more vulnerable. So students and the academic community at Universidade Nova de Lisboa and the University of Lisbon, senior citizens through the Santa Casa da Misericórdia de Lisboa, and people suffering especially from social isolation, poverty, through the two USCFs in Baixa. So I'm going to shut up now because I've been talking a lot already, and I'm going to pass to our partners. I really want them to introduce themselves, but we have Ruth Ann Baxter from the Integrating Social Prescription at the Museums of the University of Edinburgh. We have Cristiano Figueiredo, Mariana Oliveira, and more, because they've been entering through in the Zoom from the social prescription at USF Baixa and USF Almirante Reis. We have Margarida Montenegro. Now, this is wrong. There's Fernando Pinto, and the Telvina is also here, but Fernando Pinto is missing from the Integrating Social Prescription at Santa Casa da Misericórdia and São Roque Museum. Raquel Barata, who is the principal investigator of this project. And we are going to have, after these presentations, some discussions and some ideas. I welcome you from this moment on to post your questions or comments in the YouTube chat. So, Ruth Ann, the floor is yours. It would be wonderful if you could present the fantastic program that you have. We're learning so much from you. Let me stop sharing. And you can share. I think you can share the screen.
I think it's going to let me do that.
Yeah.
Is that now up on your screen?
Yes, it's perfect.
Super.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everybody, and thank you, Marta, for that lovely introduction, and a really exciting project that's taking place in Portugal. So, as Marta said, I'm the Museums Manager and Prescribed Culture Lead at the University of Edinburgh, and what I'm going to do just over the next 15 minutes is just give you a really quick sort of history on how we came about to have a heritage-based non-clinical support initiative for health, social care and well-being at the University of Edinburgh. What are we trying to do really for the individual at the end of the prescribed culture offer is to support connection to the world around them and to others, to basically help them sort of reset, take time out for themselves, a little bit of micro respite, and or to sort of go out there and try something new or feel very alive by contributing to the actual programme itself. And I'll take you through that in a little bit more detail shortly. As many of you will know, the social prescribing movement has been around for quite a while, really from the 1980s at very least. But in essence, it is prescribing people with social determinants of health difficulties to their community assets in order to support them. So, and I think Christian is going to speak a little bit more about that later. Just about myself, I am a very, what I call a psychology-informed heritage engagement professional. So these are some of the courses I've done, some of the books I've read, and I'm a qualified mental health first aider. But very, very clear that at the end of the day, I am predominantly a heritage professional, not a mental health professional. So therefore, partnership is absolutely vital. So at the moment, we have 4 programs that have been on the run. Prescribed Culture started, it was initiated in 2018 after I heard a presentation at the University of Edinburgh that said that in the previous academic year, the demand on the counselling service had gone up by 22% in one academic year. There were lots of factors that led to that. You could argue some of them positive. Part of it is because, thankfully, a lot of the students, there's less stigma and they're becoming more open and able to reach out when they are suffering mentally. But also the widening participation as movement in the universities in the UK are sort of beginning to have traction. So we have some students coming on board with pre-existing mental health needs. So I thought, well, is there an opportunity for the museums and heritage collections to in any way relieve a bit of the pressure on our colleagues in counselling and support the student mental well-being? And at the same time, I read an article about social prescribing for a very rural and older community in Yorkshire, and they were being prescribed art classes. So I thought, well, if social prescribing is working for that community, could it work for the younger community? And could we do something at a sort of micro local level within the university using our cultural assets to support student and academic mental well-being? So that's where it started in 2018, and very vital for me and for the success was to have a very interdisciplinary steering group. So my steering group included the Director of Student Wellbeing, the chaplaincy, senior chaplaincy from the university, and representatives from the Students' Association, and we had the lead GP from the university GP services, and then also a few others from the clinical side of health to help shape everything and make sure that we kept it in the right direction. So what started off was the pilot was this one in the middle, Programme 6, and it was small groups, maximum 8 students, 90-minute workshops for 6 weeks on a heritage-based theme. The very important bit in the middle for the social prescribing was the tea and coffee and cake. But what we did either side of the tea and coffee and cake was we introduced them to a particular archive or building or heritage object, and we spoke around really the people behind that archive or the people behind the object, then had tea and coffee, and afterwards just an art activity or a craft activity, if you like, that was inspired by what the story they had heard before tea and coffee. And over the 6 weeks, the same group coming together, getting to know each other, starting to be sort of a little bit more socially connected, really helped them get past some of their difficulties. But that is a very referral only. So the referral partners were the university's GPs, counselling service, chaplaincy, and the advice place, as well as some of the student support officers. From there, unfortunately, as soon as we had done the evaluation of Programme 6, COVID hit, and ultimately the evaluation had said that it had worked really well and that all stakeholders wanted to see it be created into a longer term service. So anyway, COVID came along and we created some online social prescribing offers. So at the moment, Take 30 Together Virtual, the tagline is Escape, Explore and Socialise with a world of history, a world of heritage, and that happens every Wednesday, and that's been on the go since May 2020. It's open to the full wider community, so there's civic and students in there, so it's intergenerational, international in its membership, and again, it's proving to be good. It's self-referral, so anybody can sign up for that for themselves. That then became an offer. We sort of changed the timings, the duration, and reduced the way that some of the stories are presented in order to develop an unlock and revive, which is specifically online social prescribing for the dementia, people living with dementia and other brain-related conditions. And then the last one is currently in pilot, and that's at Home with Heritage, and that is a postal scheme. So the participants there are people who are living with health and social inequalities, for whom they are mostly housebound. Two participants are actually bedbound, and they are people for whom digital is not a solution to staying connected and cognitive stimulation. And then that will be finished in May, so I'll be able to share the outcomes and the evaluation of that later in the year. And the one in amber down here is still to happen, and this is our most recent one, and I will stop at that. And this is Flourishing in Ulreki, and it's about flourishing. And we are going to be looking at taking the university collections heritage out and seeing where they tell a story in the city of Edinburgh. And that is, there's a volunteer group that is a mixture of city residents and students working on that together. And we are going to launch that in UK Creativity and Wellbeing Week in May. So again, something for the future. So the findings from Programme 6, you could just simply say, did it work? 100% of the participants said it helped positive benefit to their mental well-being. 100% said helps them feel connected to the world around them, and 100% would recommend it to others seeking support for mental well-being. Just a couple of comments. One student said, as someone who has ongoing mental health issues, prescribed culture helped me greatly. Another participant said, it gave me calming activities, a much more productive and helpful way to distract myself and relax than I had before. It is a useful addition to other forms of support. So many of the students who are on the programme 6 have diagnosed mental health conditions. They may be on medication and or doing talking therapies. So the programme 6 is very much an intervention, whereas some of the other programmes are more of a prevention programme to offer. This is just an example from one of our civic sort of wider community members who is on the Take 30 Together membership. And she just really kindly, at the end of last year, sent me a card to the museum just to say thank you for involving me, occupying me, and keeping me sane over lockdown. And that is a lady, her story is that she had taken early retirement just before lockdown. She was struggling with mental health. She had a level of depression because she just had no sense of purpose, having sort of retired and just was a little bit lost. She signed up to Take 30 Together Virtual for her own mental wellbeing needs. And after being there for about 9 months, there are opportunities within Take 30 Together Virtual for the members to present on a heritage that is of interest and passion to them. So she did that, and it was so wonderful that I asked her, would she then come and deliver some of the sessions on the Unlock and Revive programme. So all of this was done with a lot of training. So she's not the only volunteer. There are a few Prescribed Culture members plus who are people who came on board for their own needs and are now assets to the whole initiative. And they undergo training. So for example, Donna undertook dementia awareness training and engaging dementia online before she started this. And again, all of those things gave her a real sense of purpose and a meaningful reason to go off and do some research and learn something new for herself. So that's one example. And then a student example is Paula had been studying at the University of Edinburgh, and when COVID hit, for family reasons, she needed to go back to her home in Alicante. And she was suffering greatly from anxiety. Sadly, her mum has difficulties. Her mum has been suicidal a few times. So Paula had a great deal going on in her life. COVID was in no way helping that. She had felt that leaving the University of Edinburgh and leaving Edinburgh, she would have to sort of step away from any volunteer work she was doing. So I suggested to her that she might find Take 30 Together Virtual helpful. She came onto that and she loved the intergenerational aspect. She loved that there were people of all ages. And then I asked her, would she mind being a location scout? And could she maybe recommend to me some museums or historic sites we could visit in Spain? And that's what she did. So again, within the actual programme, giving people a sense of purpose, a sense of contributing to society and staying connected. So my big epic lessons, as I've called them, after about 4 years of bringing this together, it's educate and evidence. So I highly recommend you need to plan time to reach out to those like Marta and Raquel and the team are doing. It's really vital that you speak to GPs, that you understand the life and the day of a social worker, that you know what social prescribers and community link workers, the context that they're working in, and also get an understanding of evaluation format that is out there for this sort of work. There are examples. Some work better than others depending on the target groups you're going to work with or what you are actually offering in your prescriptions. But very vitally, undertake training. So there are a lot of museums in the UK that are got outdoor spaces. So they're very much trying to support people who have diabetes and keeping them physically active and fit. So therefore, go and learn something, even just basic awareness about living with diabetes. So training is vital and educating and evidencing is vital. Partner up and persevere. You know, various people have been working in this for a little while. Don't do it on your own, which is exactly what everybody's doing here. And the interdisciplinary aspect is just fantastic. It makes it so interesting. And again, it's vital. So again, collaborate every direction you need to. And remember that if you are starting the program, then it is a really slow burner. I can explain that when I started advertising our online social prescribing program in April 2020, And for the first 3 months, I was having, I think, about 9 people appearing in the sessions, but I just stuck with it because it's word of mouth. And the whole purpose of it is that you keep the same people coming together regularly, and that's how they build their social connections. And now it's a really good, flourishing program. So it will be a long game. So don't expect suddenly lots of people jumping in. And you have to allow for the referral system, which is different in different areas. As I mentioned before, we've got a range of referral partners, and you know, you need to find your own sort of locally. The I is the individual. So at the end of the day, you're trying to support a community, but the best way to support the community is to understand samples of the individual's needs and the individual's stories. And the whole background to social prescribing is asking not what is the matter with you, but asking what matters to you. And that really helps shape the programs. So if you're sort of working towards helping one person, that person might have a shared situation, a shared condition, a shared story, and that way you're supporting a community. And then, interestingly, to combine with that, there are a lot of things we can't do for people, so you have to be realistic, and you just have to be open and honest and go, I can't support that, but I can support this in this way. And finally, context and compassion. So if we're going to be working with our wonderful friends in the health and social care sectors, we need to understand what their day looks like. We need to understand their context, especially on the back of COVID. And it was difficult. There was a lot of pressures on the health and social services in the UK pre-COVID. And obviously the pandemic has absolutely exacerbated that. So understand where they're coming from and make life as easy as possible. Make your program as easy as possible for them to engage with and for them to prescribe and engage their patients and clients with. And always, always have compassion. Compassion is key. We are here to try and help others and each other, organizationally and human to human. And I think that's me. So I hope that was useful.
It was incredibly useful, Ruth Ann. I mean, really, it was very telling for me. I didn't realize that when we talked before, that students are getting engaged and they are themselves volunteering to receive training and to, you know, coordinate sessions and so on. So this is very telling. Yeah, these lessons that you told us at the end, I mean, it's kind of daunting. We have mentioned this before. It's kind of daunting because we feel we're so distant on the one hand. We feel that, you know, the healthcare system is so overwhelmed, and we really, really, really need to understand the system, the context, as you say, and to facilitate as much as we can by working with them. And, you know, we're here to help and be part of the solution, not a problem.
Absolutely,
for them. Absolutely not. So now I would invite, I don't know if Dr. Cristiano Figueiredo is there, but certainly Mariana Oliveira and Andrea Coelho are there from the team.
And Patricia.
And Patricia.
No. Yeah. Patricia is not the Patricia I thought. He's from Israel.
Okay. Hi,
the other Patricia is not here.
The other Patricia is not here. So in any case, Mariana, go ahead, please.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Can you see the image?
Yes.
Absolutely. Very good.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I will speak in English as well. And our presentation is in English as well, so it can reach more people. So good morning to everyone. My name is Mariana Oliveira. I am a family doctor or a general practitioner here in Portugal, and I work in a health center in Lisbon called UECF Almirante. And here with the social worker, Paula Massando, and together with Cristiano Figueiredo, Andrea Coelho, and Diogo Duarte Silva, who work at UECF da Baixa, we have a social prescribing project. You can see our logo here called Prescrição Social Lisboa. And we want to start by thanking this opportunity to participate in this meeting and present our social prescribing project. These are our teams, USF Almirante and USF da Baixa. We are two healthcare units here in Lisbon. Geographically, they are very close to each other. We are probably, there is a 15-minute walking distance from each other. And we have teams that were formated not long ago. They are young teams, and we share this enthusiasm for social concerns. We have patients that come from different parishes or parish councils, but mainly from the ones where we are located. So Arroios and Santa Maria Maior. We have a multicultural population. In USF Almirante, we have around 15% of migrants, and I think in USF da Baixa, this number is even higher, around 25%. And in both of the health centers, we have 90 to 100 different nationalities. So there is this multicultural population here. We also have a population with many elderly people because this is an older part of the town, an historical part of the city. So a population with many elderly people is also very common. This group, the Social Prescribing Network, created this definition, this big definition for social prescribing, but we can summarize it by saying that social prescribing enables healthcare professionals to refer the patients to a linked worker, who here in Portugal is in the figure of the social worker of health. And together, the social worker and the patient, they co-design a non-clinical social prescription, always aiming to improve the health and well-being of the patient. And there are many reasons for us to speak about social prescribing in health. And so why should we address this subject? First of all, because there is a difference between equality and equity. And we can see this in these pictures, in these images, who are very common, because when we give the same resources to people who have different needs, we might not get or achieve the same goal or even help them in the end, as we can see in the first picture. But when we distribute, when we allocate these resources, considering the different needs of the different people, then we can actually make a difference and we can help them in a useful way. We can help them. Also, when we talk about health, obviously, we shouldn't just consider the physical and mental well-being, but also consider these social aspects of health, as the World Health Organization has been saying for many years. And people's health is actually not only influenced by the common resources of the health system, but is mostly, as we can see here, around 80% is mostly influenced by the social determinants of health, as Ruth Ann already spoke a little bit about. So things like where we were born, where we grew up, how many years of schooling we have, if we have a job or if we don't have a job, how much money we make, how is our working environment, how are our family relationships, our community networks, all of this matters in our health. As we can see, around 80% of our health is determined by these social determinants of health. And this study is very interesting because it shows that here in Lisbon, when it was done here in Lisbon, and when we go down the blue line of the subway until Santa Maria Maior and Arroios, which is a very nearby council, as I said before, we see that the life expectancy at birth actually decreases around 6 years. So in this population where we are located, our healthcare units, the life expectancy at birth is actually different from the ones who are in different parts of the city. So our project, Prescrição Social Lisboa, can count with both of our healthcare units for now, but also with a big help from Escola Nacional de Saúde Pública, our public health national school, who helps us with some studies, some data, some research aspects of the project. And so social prescribing projects aim this joint action between the healthcare professionals, the social workers of health here in Portugal, and the community resources or groups that we have. The healthcare professionals are the ones who make this initial referral. It can be the doctor or the nurses. This is one of our nurses in the upper picture, and then one of our doctors as well. And we have this very important person, the link worker, or here in Portugal, the social worker of health, that we were lucky enough to already have in our health centers. Of course, there are only a few of them, but it is very important. And so they do the appointment, they do the social diagnosis, and together with the patient, they co-design this intervention plan based on the needs that they identify and on the responses that we have in the community. Of course, we always want more, but we are trying to get more and more partnerships with time. And here, as you can see in the image, the social worker communicates and coordinates with the health team and the community resources and community groups. And a wide range of local community groups are essential to these social prescribing projects. So it is very good that we are now working in Botanical Garden and with Museum as well. We started having some meetings since the beginning of the project in 2017, 2018, until the beginning of 2020, and we got to talk with the partners in the community. There is the community groups, and they gave a lot of great ideas in the beginning and even now. We got to make some visits, which were very interesting, to the community groups, because we can see them working. We could see them working on the field, but then COVID hit, and with COVID we had to adjust as everyone, and we have been doing some online meetings, not as much as we would like, but we never stopped the social prescribing project. So with social prescribing, now when a patient comes to our appointment with a social need, we can actually think a little bit outside of the box, and we can think of something different to offer them now with our social prescribing project, Prescrição Social Lisboa. And for example, we could present three kinds of patients that could appear to our appointments. For example, Pema, who was 24 years old. She's from Nepal. She's in Portugal for 6 months. She's 20 weeks pregnant. She doesn't speak Portuguese or English. Her husband works. She stays at home alone, and she really doesn't have this support system here in Portugal. Or we could have Maria, who is 77 years old. She lives alone. She has several chronic diseases. Her neighbors were evicted, which is very common in this older part of the town. Her children doesn't live with her in the city. She doesn't go out much. She's worried about her lack of memory, and she feels sad and discouraged with life now. We could have João, who is 54 years old. He's unemployed for 4 years now. He has the 4th year of schooling. He is divorced. He lives in a rented room, which is also very common here. His obesity is getting worse. He feels alone, and he doesn't really believe that his life could change at 54 years old and nowadays. Of course, we could help with some pills sometimes when there is a mental issue, when there is something to treat with the several chronic diseases, for example, that Maria had, but we can actually think of something a little bit different. So for Pema, for example, we could refer her to different associations that work with migrants, aiming a better integration in our society. For Maria, for example, we could, she can benefit from a senior academy. She can benefit from an association that could go to her house and stay with her for some periods of time with some activities, or she can even attend a day center from the Santa Casa da Misericórdia de Lisboa. João, who was 54 years old, and as I said before, his obesity was getting worse. He didn't really believe that his life could change nowadays. but we can try to speak about some free or low-cost exercise program. We can try to help him by getting a new job or even joining a voluntary group. And it is always good to have new partnerships. And it is very interesting that in 2019, both of our healthcare centers participate in an event, in a science fair that was organized by the city of Lisbon. And we actually ended up visiting the gardens. We made some activities there, and we were in the museum as well. So it is very interesting that 2.5 years later, we got this partnership with them, with you. And if we look for some studies online, we can show that we can see that they show that art and nature they can help increase feelings of well-being, improve self-esteem, decrease social isolation, and improve mental and longer mental and physical health. And this is especially important in high-risk populations, such as migrants or in the elderly people. And the same thing with visits to museums. They are good activities to improve psychological well-being over time. So our next prescriptions can actually look like this, like a day in a beautiful park, making exercise, talking, creating relationships, fighting isolation, and stimulating mental, physical, and social health. And programs like Nature on Prescription or Museums on Prescription that already exist in other countries can now be a reality in Lisbon as well. So to summarize, we can say that social prescribing allows connecting users of primary care, healthcare with existing support resources in our community, enhancing the action of the social worker in health. It also seeks to facilitate the response to the social needs of the patients, always aiming to improve their health and optimize the use of the health services. And I want to end by thanking again for this opportunity, and we hope this presentation will be helpful.
Thank you so much, Mariana. I profit to welcome Cristiano Figueiredo, who just entered, and I think also that Paulo Massano just entered. So they're here with us. Welcome, and thank you so much for your time. We're really proud, to have you. We got to know you, ironically, through Ruth Ann. So we had to go to Edinburgh in order to learn about you, which is kind of crazy because we're neighbors practically. But that shows the divide that exists between these worlds that I mentioned at the beginning. And so we're very, very proud to have you. Thank you so much. And you give us the opportunity to target a group that is very, very important to us because they are usually outside. They don't come to museums. It's completely outside the radar of culture and museums. And so this is very, very important for us. Thank you. I don't know if any of the colleagues from the USFs would like to add anything at this point. Cristiano, Paula?
They are muted now.
Yeah, they're muted, okay. But so I would move on to another absolutely top 5 stars partner, which also enables us to get to audiences that are difficult for us, and also they have a museum. And so they have this double benefit for the project, which is the audience, senior citizens mostly, and also a museum who will think about these dynamics and with us. So I would love to welcome Fernando Pinto and Margarida Montenegro. I don't know who is going to speak first from Santa Casa, and it's going to be Fernando, I think. Yeah, but Margarida is also there. You can share.
Pode-me confirmar se já estamos a ver?
Não, ainda não estamos a ver o PowerPoint.
Ok.
Vamos só ver a sua cara.
Certo, mas vamos ver agora.
Agora, isso.
Muito bem. Bom dia. We apologize to our foreign partner from Edinburgh, but this time we will speak in Portuguese. It is much more convenient both for us and for our main audience. However, the slideshow is in English, so you can follow as well. Bom, o que nós trazemos aqui hoje é uma partilha da forma como a área da cultura e da ação social da Santa Casa de Lisboa estão a abordar este tema da prescrição social, procurando cruzar recursos e necessidades, especificamente numa linha de prescrição cultural. A história... perdão, estou aqui em modo de... A história das misericórdias é bastante conhecida, pelo menos no mundo lusófono, e, portanto, esta misericórdia foi a primeira a ser criada, ao longo dos tempos foi adaptando os seus recursos para responder aos novos problemas sociais que iam surgindo, e tem uma situação um pouco particular porque foi acumulando um conjunto de recursos e privilégios, mas também muitas responsabilidades, daí o seu caráter de entidade privada, mas com utilidade pública. Isto só para dar um exemplo, na cidade de Lisboa é a misericórdia que compete fazer as vezes da segurança social, portanto fazer o trabalho que no resto do país é feito pela segurança social, naturalmente com os seus recursos. A ação social é, de certa forma, o coração da Santa Casa, que ainda assim se desenvolve por outras áreas, como sejam a saúde, a cultura, a educação e a formação, o património, os jogos, uma diversidade de áreas. Com o apoio social, nós, portanto, pretendemos contribuir diariamente para o bem-estar de indivíduos e famílias, não só numa ótica reparadora, mas também numa ótica de prevenção, porque através desta intervenção nós estamos também a evitar que desigualdades e vulnerabilidades sejam mais acentuadas e procurando, de certa forma, promover o desenvolvimento social. Dentro da ação social, o coração da atividade diria que é o próprio atendimento social, que não é só uma porta de entrada, é uma atividade continuada. Nós não fazemos prescrição social, nós fazemos acompanhamento social, o que implica uma relação personalizada com os indivíduos e com as famílias, visando minimizar as suas vulnerabilidades e considerando os indivíduos no seu contexto familiar e comunitário. Esta atividade está organizada em torno de uma direção de intervenção e justamente de desenvolvimento de proximidade, que integra 10 unidades territoriais, de acordo com as divisões administrativas da cidade, que são as juntas de freguesia. E, portanto, tanto o atendimento social como as respostas sociais de proximidade estão ancoradas nessas 10 unidades que aqui estão representadas nesta imagem do mapa da cidade de Lisboa, com a diversidade dos territórios que a própria cidade contempla. Quando falamos de respostas de proximidade, estamos a falar de 28 jardins, 28 equipamentos de infância, portanto creches, jardins de infância, creches familiares, 19 centros de dia, 10 serviços de apoio domiciliário, 5 centros comunitários, algumas respostas atípicas e um centro de educação, formação e certificação com ofertas para jovens e adultos muito diversificadas, e que trabalha não só competências escolares e tecnológicas, mas também competências pessoais e sociais. Aqui no Centro Histórico, a unidade em que estamos a trabalhar é a unidade de Colinas, que corresponde genericamente à Baixa Pombalina e a alguns bairros populares como Moraria, Alfama e Graça, por exemplo. Mas por detrás deste bilhete postal escondem-se problemas sociais específicos que têm a ver com a questão dos efeitos do turismo de massas, do envelhecimento populacional, da mobilitação urbana, ao lado de outros velhos problemas que afetam toda a cidade, como sejam as questões da pobreza, da toxicodependência e todos os tópicos ligados à exclusão social. Para fazer este trabalho, nós temos de trabalhar diariamente com os parceiros locais, as juntas de freguesia, a Polícia de Segurança Pública, as escolas, as unidades de saúde, e foi nesse contexto que nós temos a USF Baixa como um dos nossos parceiros principais. E foi através deles que tomamos contacto com esta ideia da prescrição social. Portanto, os primeiros passos que demos foram no sentido de aproximar as nossas equipas, de nos conhecermos melhor e o trabalho de cada um, mas agora estamos, de facto, empenhados em dar passos concretos em frente e estamos aqui, juntamente com a cultura da misericórdia, a olhar para os nossos recursos e para os nossos públicos e para as nossas necessidades e a tentar, de facto, gizar um plano de ação. Deixaria 2 exemplos daquilo que já está a ser pensado e, de certa forma, também já está a ser concretizado. Um é fazer uma interface entre 2 centros de dia e 2 museus. Nós temos aqui nesta unidade o Centro de Dia da Sé e o Centro de Dia de São Cristóvão, com os seus diversos públicos, e temos o Museu de São Roque e o Museu de História Natural. Portanto, a nossa ideia é não só levar os públicos destes centros de dia aos museus, mas também trazer os museus aos centros de dia, seja através de uma réplica de uma obra de arte que pode ser um tema de conversa, seja através de um vídeo de peças de arte e peças dos museus, como aliás já acontece com a questão da leitura, porque temos um voluntariado de leitura em que a Biblioteca da Misericórdia envia aos centros de dia pessoas para passar uma tarde a ler alguns textos. O outro exemplo tem a ver com um projeto muito específico desta unidade, que se chama Oficina do Eu, que é dirigida a pessoas com particulares vulnerabilidades na área da saúde mental. São pessoas que são identificadas no nosso atendimento social e com as quais estabelecemos rotinas semanais de acompanhamento psicossocial. Portanto, existem vários grupos com os quais há dinâmicas de grupo semanais e a nossa ideia é, então, este recurso do Jardim Botânico poder ser não só um espaço de visita, mas também, eventualmente, até de própria reunião do grupo, pelas condições especiais que oferece a partir de um espaço ao ar livre e, portanto, estamos muito empenhados em que estes grupos que estão com funcionamento semanal possam agora brevemente dar este passo. A colega da Cultura dará exemplos mais concretos daquilo que já foi feito e daquilo que também estamos a pensar fazer. Muito obrigado. Margarida, passo-lhe a palavra.
Obrigada, Fernanda. Avançámos imenso realmente aqui. Já temos coisas concretas a acontecer. Isto é absolutamente entusiasmante. Agora a Margarida. Margarida está aí? Muito bem. Olá, Margarida. Um beijinho. Gosto em vê-la. Ainda não a vejo, por acaso. Se calhar está mute. Veja lá se não está com o microfone trancado. Margarida.
Desculpem, estava sem som. Estava sem som.
Olá!
Hello, everybody. It is a pleasure to be with you again. As Fernando told before, as the target of this meeting is almost Portuguese people, I will show the PowerPoint in English that Roxanne could make the accompaniment, but I will talk in Portuguese because easy for us and the target is almost Portuguese. Portanto, na sequência da anterior reunião que tivemos aqui no mês de novembro ou dezembro, estivemos a pensar em algumas questões e uma das questões era que na última reunião falámos em prescrever a prescrição social. Estivemos a pensar e achamos que a prescrição social se confunde muito com uma noção que nós temos em Portugal, que é o apoio social, e leva muito para a ideia do apoio social, que é o que os colegas da ação social fazem, e, portanto, eu resolvi colocar aqui Museums and Wellbeing, Prescribing Culture, porque eu estou a falar da área da cultura e penso que a ideia é vermos de que forma é que a cultura pode impactar positivamente na saúde das pessoas e no bem-estar das pessoas. Portanto, isto é uma nota prévia para vos explicar porque Prescribing Culture. A segunda nota prévia é esta. estamos a desenvolver com o Museu de História Natural, digamos assim, uma série de, estamos a estudar formas de respostas, de tarefas, de atividades que possam vir a ser utilizadas pelos colegas das USFS, por exemplo, para prescreverem cultura. Esta é já uma coisa que eu queria também deixar aqui presente, porque é verdadeiramente o nosso objetivo principal. Portanto, o que é que nós queremos? Tentar integrar a prescrição cultural na Santa Casa da Misericórdia de Lisboa, através dos serviços culturais que a Santa Casa disponibiliza. Eu aqui trago apenas 2 exemplos, um do Museu de São Roque e outro da biblioteca, mas a Direção de Cultura tem ainda outro serviço na área cultural, que é o Arquivo Histórico, e vamos, digamos assim, fazer uma reflexão no total destes 3 equipamentos para ver se conseguimos encontrar respostas para a prescrição social. Sendo assim, eu vou aqui mostrar um dos casos que já estamos a desenvolver com a população utente da Misericórdia e que se dirige fundamentalmente a séniores da Misericórdia, estejam eles em centros de dia ou em residências, lares residenciais da Misericórdia. Qual é o grande objetivo disto? O grande objetivo disto é levar o Museu de São Roque à casa das pessoas, reduzir o isolamento e manter, acima de tudo, as capacidades cognitivas das pessoas ativas, prevenindo ou não deixando avançar tudo aquilo que é hoje um problema do século XX e que são as demências. Ora, nessa sequência, deixem-me lá ver se eu consigo aqui, porque isto estão a aparecer aqui, sair da tela cheia, talvez. Está-me aqui a tapar a imagem.
Margarida,
Pronto, já está. Portanto, a primeira experiência que fizemos foi levar o museu para fora de portas e, neste caso, para um centro de dia, uma residência da Misericórdia de Lisboa, que é a Casa Faria Mantero. É uma casa até bastante especial, porque ela própria é, em termos arquitetónicos, uma peça de museu, e, por outro lado, é uma casa que se destina fundamentalmente a pessoas de idade que tiveram, de alguma forma, alguma relação com a cultura. Portanto, o que é que fizemos? Levámos estes 4 painéis que vimos aqui, que representam 4 telas de São Roque, da antiga ermida de São Roque, que estão no Museu de São Roque. As telas foram feitas em grandes dimensões para terem a dimensão das telas originais e foram transportadas por uma transportadora especializada em obras de arte para que tudo aquilo pareça que estamos a falar de obras de arte e não de reproduções de obras de arte, para que esta experiência seja verdadeiramente uma experiência mais realista para as pessoas que estão a assistir. Portanto, com esta primeira exposição destas obras, os utentes desta residência têm uma primeira visão do que são as obras, o que é que elas mostram, etc. Esta atividade inclui fundamentalmente 3 ações. Os técnicos do serviço educativo, após esta primeira visão das obras, até alguns vestidos de acordo com a época e com personagens das próprias telas, dão uma explicação sobre o que é o que é que a tela representa, chamam a atenção para alguns objetos representados, de forma a criar aqui alguma ligação entre aquilo que eram os objetos usados na altura e o que é que hoje é o equivalente que nós usamos. Por exemplo, aqui está representado nesta tela de São Roque um cesto de roupa e, portanto, fazer as pessoas falarem um bocadinho à volta de objetos que, no passado como no futuro, continuam a ser utilizados, e fazer esta relação entre o passado e o presente. Uma outra situação que se faz também aqui, aparece aqui muito nesta fotografia, aqui muito do lado direito, são grandes cubos que têm também alguns detalhes destas grandes reproduções de telas e que mostram detalhes das 4 pinturas. Estes cubos são utilizados pelos monitores do serviço educativo para os lançar como se estivéssemos num jogo de dados, para os séniores identificarem aqueles detalhes, aqueles pormenores das pinturas na pintura geral que está emoldurada. Uma terceira atividade que fazemos também, aqui vê-se melhor o cubo, uma terceira atividade também que fazemos é com postais que têm uma imagem de cada uma destas pinturas que está aqui e que é, por assim dizer, elas estão associadas a provérbios populares. No verso da imagem tem provérbios populares para que desculpem, eu vou fechar ali a porta, para que os séniores possam falar um bocadinho da sua experiência, quando é que eram usados os provérbios populares, alguma coisa que tenha ligação com esta situação. Portanto, isto é um exemplo de atividades que fizemos com séniores da Santa Casa, em vários equipamentos da Santa Casa. Se não me engano, fizemos isto em 11 equipamentos da Santa Casa, levar o museu para fora de portas, mas poderemos criar outras respostas diferentes destas. Estas são apenas um exemplo. Um outro exemplo é com a Biblioteca da Santa Casa. O chamado projeto de voluntariado da leitura. E o que é que nós fazemos neste projeto? Este projeto está também dedicado ou mais orientado para as populações séniores, seja de residências de pessoas de idade, seja para centros de dia, seja para centros comunitários, todos da Santa Casa da Misericórdia de Lisboa. Quais são os grandes objetivos deste projeto? Manter a mente viva, a trabalhar ativa, combater a solidão, desenvolver a empatia, melhorar a empatia, a relação social entre as pessoas, aumentar a capacidade de concentração, também distrair, ajudar a melhorar a memória, e isso evidentemente que traz uma situação de bem-estar. Como é que é desenvolvido este projeto? Estamos aqui, esta imagem mostra exatamente um equipamento da Misericórdia onde esse projeto está a ser desenvolvido. A equipa que, digamos assim, leva este projeto aos centros de dia ou aos lares da Misericórdia é composto por um bibliotecário e um voluntário. Os textos que são lidos, que são fundamentalmente de literatura portuguesa ou literatura estrangeira, são escolhidos para cada sessão pelos bibliotecários, mas de acordo com o que eles conhecem dos gostos de cada um destes, da população, de cada um destes equipamentos. E depois as sessões começam por haver uma apresentação do livro e do autor pelo bibliotecário, seguindo-se a leitura de uma parte de um texto dessa obra. Essa leitura é feita ou pelo bibliotecário ou pelo voluntário, ou, no caso dos centros de dia, onde as pessoas estão mais autónomas, é feito pelos próprios participantes nas sessões. Finalmente, discute-se, conversa-se sobre aquilo que foi o objeto de leitura, o texto de leitura, da hipótese das pessoas falarem sobre as suas memórias, ou a partir do livro falarem sobre as suas memórias, sobre alguns dos seus interesses. Portanto, é uma forma também de socializar mais estas pessoas. Como vos digo, isto são apenas 2 exemplos, porque aquilo que se pretende é agora, em parceria com o Museu de História Natural, pensarmos atividades em conjunto e atividades que possam criar uma espécie de um cardápio mais alargado para que os nossos colegas das USFS possam também prescrever cultura e, com isto, aumentar o bem-estar das pessoas.
Bem, Margarida, fantástico. Muito obrigada. E esta ideia das bibliotecas é absolutamente touché, porque são extraordinariamente importantes de facto e também fazem parte do setor da cultura e dos espaços seguros, não é? Esses espaços onde as pessoas se sentem bem, se sentem calmas, não se sentem desafiadas, estressadas, ansiosas, etc. Portanto, é ótimo usarem mais este recurso. Portanto, não é só o Museu São Roque, vamos usar também a livraria.
Também a biblioteca. E não sabe-se também o arquivo. Vamos lá ver.
Exato, o arquivo está bem.
We are trying to think about something, some activity or something that will include the archive, the historical archive of Santa Casa.
Absolutely. For example, in citizen science, there is this, repetitive task of transcribing manuscripts, which is very good for us and very good for the people because, they feel relaxed and it's something that doesn't require many skills. Well, sometimes does if the manuscript is from the 15th century. But anyway, thank you so much, Santa Casa da Misericórdia. And now we have something a bit eccentric to our partnership because we have a researcher. So a researcher from the Faculty of Sciences of the University of Lisbon, Cristina Luís, she heard about this and she said, I have an idea immediately to put the data that you gather into work for research and for questioning topics and themes that I'm interested about. So Cristina will tell us a little bit. Are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Yeah, and I'm open. I will be more than that, opening the door to how to integrate science in this. And actually what Marta did was that she mentioned citizen science. And so I'm going to see how we can integrate science also in this field of social prescription. I'm going to share my screen. So please let me know. Are you seeing it? Yeah?
Absolutely. Perfect. Go ahead.
Okay. So, yeah. So the first time I heard about social prescription was, in fact, with Martha. When she told me about this, I was like, oh my gosh, what an interesting thing to think about, because I'm also working in the field of citizen science. I'm going to explain a little bit more what it is, not deeply because it's not the theme here. But so how could we integrate science in this? How can science be included also in all these subjects? But when we think about science, usually, and I was mentioning this to another colleague, and she was telling me, oh my gosh, you're going to integrate science in something that has to do with culture and social prescription. Science has its complexity. People will feel like, oh my gosh, you're bringing complexity to this. But it's because we usually think about science as something complex, and it has its own complexity. But science, in fact, is also culture. We have culture, we have scientific culture. Margarida was talking about prescribing culture, and thank you for saying that, because it opened the door to talk about this scientific culture. In fact, science usually is divided, and we talk about science and society. Of course, science is part of society and society is part of science. It's all interconnected. We have the tendency to divide. But of course, that's why we have museums of natural history and science, to bring science to society and explain it much more easily. So, bringing science into this social prescribing, it's a challenge, and it can be very interesting and something we should, of course, consider, because science has been always, because of the way it has been communicated in the past, in a one direction, from a bottom-up perspective. So scientists communicating unidirectional, but now this practice is changing. So what we are having more and more, and this has been mentioned before, we are looking for engagement and participation. So the interaction between science and societies is actually moving and shifting from top-down approaches to more bottom-up models. Two-way dialogue and co-construction of research is what is now in the agenda of science. And so it interconnects very well with this project. And that is why this was a challenge to see how we could integrate all of this. And in this field of talking about engagement in science, we bring citizen science to this field. So what is citizen science? Citizen science is, if you go to the internet, you will see plenty of examples of what citizen science. Marta was inclusively talking about a specific topic or example of a citizen science project. I will speak a little bit about some more. But when we talk about citizen science, it feels like it's something new, because in the last decade, it's a topic that is emerging, and it's an highly discussed concept. But in fact, citizen science is nothing more than doing science in our leisure times. It's when it has been done. The naturalists of the 19th century, 18th century, they did that. There was not even the terminology or the name scientist. It only appeared at the end of the 19th century. But people were dedicated in some of their leisure times, for example, aristocrats or whoever. We can even say that Charles Darwin was an example of citizen scientist. But what happened is that people dedicate some of their leisure times also to science. They can do it as a volunteer work, as something that they can practice. So it's a concept that it's new in now, the terminology citizen science, but it's a practice that it has existed for a long time, especially due to our connection with nature. But there can be several ways of explaining what is citizen science, but the simplest way of explaining what it is public participation in scientific research. So it's when you include non-scientists or non-specialists in a certain area in the definition, in all the steps or one step of the scientific research, when people help in the definition of research questions, data collection, data analysis, discussion of results. So there is an involvement of scientists and a co-creation of research along in all the steps or in one step of scientific research. And there are plenty of types of projects that can exist. The most common ones are the contributive ones that are usually designed by scientists and in which non-scientists contribute to data. Then you have collaborative ones. So you can collaborate there is a collaboration between scientists and non-scientists in contributing with data, but there can be other steps like analyzing data or disseminating results. And then we have the co-created ones. So the co-created ones, these are the most interesting ones, and there were already mentioned the co-designing of activities. So even also in science, you can co-create together some projects that will involve scientists and non-scientists. And I can give you some examples of what is being done in Portugal in this field, because citizen science is in fact a field of research too, okay? There is it is in construction, I am part of it, the Portuguese network of citizen science in Portugal. It has been implemented. It's gathering information from plenty of projects. I only bring here two examples. Actually, I bring four, but start with these two ones. One, which is a huge platform of biodiversity, where people can register in their leisure times. They can collect and do, instead of doing collections of Pokemons, they can do collections of pictures and get information from the biodiversity that exists. So anyone can do this as long as they have a mobile phone, and almost everyone has a mobile phone nowadays. There are other projects, and Margarida was talking about collecting memories and information and memory for people. There is a project called Memory for All, where people collect, where they are collecting oral histories from people. So you can contribute with information for this type of projects that then analyze and do research using this type of information that is collected. In fact, even the Museum of Natural History has some projects and is working on this, on implementing citizen science. There is this project here, Life in the Botanical Gardens, and in the largest platform of citizen science projects worldwide, which is Zooniverse. We have been, when I was working at the museum, we also tried to implement some projects in this field. So this can be a way of also prescribing this type of activities and prescribing scientific culture along with other leisure activities. Just to give you an idea that there are plenty of initiatives and associations worldwide. So citizen science is in fact part of a larger process of engaging people in new forms of interaction in scientific research, and provides learning opportunities for all parties. So it can bring, it's something that should be, can be used as a way of promoting dialogue and also learning opportunities. And how can well-being be related with citizen science? Because that's what brings us here to this session. So in fact, it has not been tested that much. That's why I'm bringing this to the agenda, so we could look of ways of integrating also well-being in citizen science. In Portugal, as far as I know, it's never been tried, but it can be very relevant, because if there is the benefit not only for the individual, and it was mentioned before that many times we want to from our practice, we are benefiting our own well-being, but we can also benefit the well-being of communities if we do projects where all the communities are included. So in these well-being activities, we can use, other than projects or collaborative, contributive, you can change it for the people, with the people, by the people. So different types of initiatives and contributions from communities, when everybody works together to raise and to create scientific knowledge. And I bring here just an example that I found very interesting from the Stanford University, which is called the Our Voice Citizen Science model, where you have community-based empowerment approaches in which the citizen science are supported to become agents of changing their own communities. So what you do is you have several steps where the communities go through several steps of discovery, discussion, and then they can even produce change. So if you involve really the communities and all the people that are part of the communities in processes of change, they will have the feeling of belonging. So the engagement of those communities will be of belonging. And you can also produce scientific knowledge through this. The major goal, of course, of these projects has been to engage underserved populations that typically have lacked a voice in decision making, and also the promotion of health equity as a main theme of this work. Of course, this would be really interesting to see how these communities, how it can be tested and implemented, this sort of projects that include also science in this prescribing, social prescribing. So this would be a challenge to see how we could include also citizen science practices in this social prescribing. So prescribing scientific culture also. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm open to all the questions that you feel are needed. So thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, Christina. So if I understood correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, you will be developing the activities, the scientific science activities that students, senior citizens, and the people in social isolation and so on prescribed by the UFS, right? So you will be doing that, and at the same time evaluating, right?
Yes. Evaluating at the same time, so looking what can be developed. This would be, of course, made in collaboration with, because I'm not developing those citizen science projects. There are plenty of citizen science projects being done in Portugal, because we are talking about Portugal. There are plenty of examples of citizen science projects that are being developed, and I would create the connection with some. We should look at which citizen science projects are the most appropriate to be used in this prescription, what would make sense, and then we should analyze the outputs of this collaboration, because there are, and the most interesting part would be to try to look for those co-created projects, and not only for the contributive projects. Those are easy to do, but the collaborative are this one. I only know in Portugal of one project of that typology that is being done in an underserved population in the other side of the river, and it's an excellent example of how you can involve communities in the production of science. And
this doesn't, although you mentioned our museum, it does not exclude Museu de São Roque, so you can also, or other museums that want to join the consortium at a later stage. So I think
of course,
absolutely.
I just gave some examples. There are plenty of examples, fortunately, already in Portugal that could be used in this. So
right. So there's also that third role that you will have, a kind of facilitator among our project and the citizen science community in Portugal, right? That's great. Thank you so much. So now we have some questions from the audience. Thank you so much for your engagement and for being here. Let's start with...
Marta, should I sum up the project?
Oh, yeah. I forgot Raquel, the most important person. I forgot Raquel.
Most important, but it's just to sum up.
There are so many questions.
I will try to be
exactly. Okay, sum up. Let me introduce you. Raquel Barata is the coordinator of our, section of publics and programming, and she's also the principal investigator of the PI of this project. So she brings everything together, and she will now do her presentation. Sorry, Raquel.
No, it's okay. I will be brief. It's just really to try to summarize some of the ideas here already explained. Brilliant ideas. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today, presenting all the work this group has been carrying out the last months. We start calling this project Museums and Wellbeing as a group. in Portuguese, Museus e Bem-estar, but of course, like Margarida said, prescribing culture is important for us because in the Portuguese language, social prescribing can be misunderstood. So museums and well-being, prescribing culture, that's mainly the title we've been assuming. So I'm now in the position to make the state of the art of what we've been doing until now, starting from the beginning, the target audiences we had before. And we've been meeting the Nova University, and we are already, this museum already a partner to host these cultural prescribing volunteers from Nova. And last month we met all the student support offices from the faculties of the University of Lisbon to start this cultural prescribing for students. So they will just start now in March. So this is really starting to happen. And the museums, both this museum, MUHNAC, and the São Roque Museum are getting prepared to receive students also. So we have these other senior people communities, which is a target audience for MUHNAC, São Roque Museum and Santa Casa, because Santa Casa is the social care institution here, like Fernando said, and it's important maybe to establish this difference. It's not a social prescribing entity for itself, it's a following up, it's a social care entity following up social needs. It's a bit different, and it implies different activities, but we are going to understand that. So what we did until now, like Margarida said, we had already two big meetings, and we are taking care of developing joint activities for the daycare centers at Santa Casa, but also to receive the mental health project in both museums, like Fernando explained, Oficina do Eu. It's a group, and we are now starting to book the activities first in the Botanic Garden, but then also in São Roque Museum. And also to prescribe interventions, of course, now coming from the health providers in both museums. And we already started with the health units from Baixa and Almirante, with Cristiano and Mariana, and with the social workers there, Andrea and Paula. And we started in November this prescribing, the social prescribing in this museum, in the Natural History Museum. So that's the state of the art for now with the target audiences. But it was really, really important for us to have some outline of the process in terms of the heritage sector. What has been, how does the museum has to prepare itself, and also the different stakeholders for this to work. So the first step would be the health providers, doctors or psychologists, to really prescribe tasks that has been approved in the hosting museum. So this is very important, to detail the tasks that the social prescribing can work on. And then the social workers or psychologists, being in the health units or faculties, get in contact with a person in the museum, which we call the link person, that has to be the main contact with this person, this prescribed person. They will send the profile of the person, the tasks they chose, their motivations, and of course the contact number, because it's also important to make an insurance, of course, for the person to be in the museums working in the approved tasks. So this person at the museum must then personally contact the prescribed person and book a first meeting. And in this meeting, they will create a link with the place, with the tasks, with the tutor, with the team, and book flexible volunteering tasks or periods. And flexibility here is the word. It's really important to be flexible to the needs of the people, of the person prescribed. It will also create confidence, of course, because the linked person is responsible for following up all the process and give feedback. This feedback is really, really, really important. This can't happen without the feedback to social workers and psychologists, because they are the health providers. And then, of course, to monitoring all the visits and the intervention as a whole in the museum, inside the museum. Okay, so the prescribed profiled approved by the health providers was to include people like Mariana showed before that could suffer from some symptoms of anxiety or social isolation. Of course, she gave already the examples of retired people, migrants or unemployed, but also with mild depression symptoms like the psychologists in the universities identified already. So this can be the profile of people coming into the museums. But it was already, of course, needed. It was a need for us in the museum sector to understand who was the linked person. What, not in terms of who, but what are the skills, the really important skills to develop in this new professional task. And of course, they have to have experience in working with different audiences. They have to have vocational skills to promote empathy and confidence, skills for listening, observing, focusing on connect to the other. They have to build this capacity and engaging about the museum and the museum collections, to be tolerant and flexible and willing to collaborate, and of course, aware of the relevance to follow up a close contact with the different tutors and prescribing entities. This is really, really important. So this ends in, we really need to develop social prescribing training. And I've been talking, of course, with all these partners here, especially with Ruthan, to start thinking about some training sessions, of course, we will offer this spring to train the museum sector into this prescribing culture needs and activities. Of course, then, like Fernando said, if there are some already social care institutions that follow up some groups that already have projects about developing some therapeutic activities on mental health, then of course, if museums are prepared to host social prescribing, they will also be prepared to host these groups of another projects going by. So just to sum up, this is the state of the art of what's happening now, until now. We have hosting in this consortium. We have hosting the National Museum of Natural History and Science and São Roque Museum. We are, like Margarida said, working together to work with this mental health project of Sina do Will that Fernando presented, to receive the group in both museums, first in the Botanic Garden and then the São Roque Museum, but also to co-create joint activities that can target seniors at the daycare centers, and also for cultural prescribing in both, because of course MUHNAC is already prepared, because we start receiving the social prescribing from the health units of Baixa and Almirante. We are now going to start in March to receive students. São Roque is preparing itself for the same, but we can have some joint offer in terms of tasks that can be done in one and then the other, and somehow engage better the prescribed volunteers. So we have the health providers in this consortium, which is the Santa Casa, of course, not social prescribing, but social care following up. We have social prescribing from the health units of Baixa and Almirante, and now the students from Nova and the University of Lisbon that are going to use both museums, the National History Museum and São Roque Museum, to develop the prescribing culture tasks. And we have research. And this research, of course, is being done in all these great group conversations, but universities are at the core of this. So we have until now the University of Edinburgh, of course, and the University of Lisbon. But the idea is really to enlarge this, this group. And so my final slide, what are the next steps? The next steps is, like I said, enlarge this collaboration network to other museums, other health units, and we have just one in this next month that we will, me and São Roque Museum, we will be contacting. It's just our neighbor also, it's the Arco unit, and we have other universities we've been contacting with. But we also want to promote the project webpage in the next month with all the information and resources, because it is important when any social prescribing entity, the health providers, when they talk the first time with the prescribed person, to have something they can look for, and also, of course, to enlarge the consortium as a whole. It is of major relevance to have this project web page done in a few days. We want to develop research and evaluation methodologies to the processes and interventions for prescribing culture. This will happen very soon. We need to have this to be sure that what we are doing is really going in the right direction. So we are going to work with universities, of course, also to promote research about social prescribing in the heritage sector, to promote training, like I said before, and this training is going to be on offer this spring, maybe in April, beginning of May, but it will be done by this consortium and be offered to the museum, well, to all the stakeholders interested in this matter, and of course to promote the cultural prescribing at the national and international level. So that's it. My idea was just to sum up the state of the art now, and to open for questions and ideas now.
Right. Well, you were brilliant, Raquel, because we understood how things work. There were actually several questions on the YouTube chat about, how am I going to send the students? And museums, already 2 museums volunteered to join. Okay, nice. So there's museum professionals following us, and that's absolutely, I already said yes, absolutely, contact Raquel. So yeah, it's the Museus of Técnico, so Natália Rocha.
Yes, I know her.
And Museu dos Lanifícios da Universidade da Beira Interior, na Covilhã. So the Wool Museum in Covilhã also wants to join, learn more about this, and so on. And it's good because one is outside Lisbon, so of course, we have to think about all sorts of things, because in Lisbon we have this infrastructure prepared. So, but please get in touch with Raquel. Also, an invitation to underline this dimension of research that Raquel said. We invite anyone who wants to look into this matter from any perspective. Okay, not only the medical perspective or from any perspective, from anthropological, sociological, whatever. So we invite researchers to look into this, to the project, to contact Raquel too.
I just put my email in my name.
In the chat of the YouTube is better.
No, in my name, because it's easier for people to see. In my name, here is my email. Okay,
we have a few minutes. Not many, so I would move on to questions, but from the audience. But we have Patricia Arriaga from Isqueté. I think she also wants to join, right, Patricia?
Yes.
Welcome.
Okay. Well, I'm a little bit sick, so COVID caught me yesterday.
Oh,
I'm
Get well soon.
I'm coughing but let's see. So I was wondering if the project, well, I was not at the beginning when Marta Lorenzo started mentioning the project. So I was wondering if the project is already like with a team, or you can also involve more other partners from other countries.
Involve more, absolutely, involve more.
So
you should get in touch with Raquel, talk to her, get in touch, both of you, and and see how ISCTE, the institution, ISCTE has a long history and tradition of working on these issues in research, and so we would love to have you, really. So
okay, that's great.
Okay, let's move on. Oh, sorry, Patricia.
Yeah, I'm just wondering with whom I would contact, because you mentioned
me.
Raquel Barata.
You have my email.
Okay.
My name.
Okay. Thank you. So just one more question. In terms of methodology, are you already planning some experimental study on the effects? Because you are collecting a lot of qualitative data. And I was wondering if you were also planning, doing some experimental.
We need the universities to come together with us to start evaluating the interventions.
Okay.
So please contact me. I have I have done other contacts already, mostly with the Faculty of Psychology also, but my idea is to work together.
Okay, great.
Look, we cannot anticipate the research questions, Patricia, so there could be many. So what we're saying is that we're open. Okay, we're open to all sorts of research questions, projects, and so on. And we'll have to do an evaluation.
We lost Marta? Or
okay, it's not me.
It's not us. I think it's only Marta. But, well, what she's saying is that we need now, the idea of this Info Day was to present the project for everybody who wants to join us, being universities, museums, health units, health providers. The idea is to make really this work out as a big national prescribing culture, museums and well-being project. Marta, are you
right? There? So let's go to a question from the audience. There was a glitch, a technical glitch from my part, but now everything is okay. First question from Lucia Alves. She says, for Dr. Mariana, is there any evidence that explains why life expectancy differs in different parts of the city? What factors can explain this? And how could this be related to social prescription? So, Mariana.
Yes, we thank you for the question. This is probably related to that thing that we were talking about, social determinants of health. And they are very studied for many years now. And we know that most of our health isn't only connected with our physical health. So the mental and the social aspects are very important. And throughout the years, there has been many studies that show that mental and social aspects are very important. So things like if we have a job, if we don't have a job, if we live in a part of the city that has been more cultural activities, if we where we grow up, how much money we make, all of these things are very important to our health, and this has been studied for many years. So if you look online for social determinants of health, then you'll find many articles about this.
Yeah. And I have a question, a more direct question to our project from Marta Bárbolo. She asks, I'm going to say in Portuguese, em contexto académico para estudantes de uma faculdade, de que maneira poderá ser aplicado o conceito de receitar cultura e de que maneira poderão os estudantes participar nestes programas já existentes em Lisboa. Parece-me que, entretanto, a maneira como a Raquel organizou o PowerPoint dela já dá, em parte pelo menos, resposta à pergunta. Portanto, os estudantes são encaminhados, referred, não é? Pelos
gabinete de apoio ao estudante.
Sim, pelos gabinetes, seja da Nova, seja da Universidade de Lisboa. Os estudantes têm que se dirigir ao gabinete de apoio ao estudante, que tem vários nomes em faculdades diferentes, etc. E depois, então, aí eles estão preparados para encaminhar para aqui. Não sei se os estudantes podem escolher lá e dizer assim, mas eu quero ir para o Jardim Botânico, não quero ir para mais nada. Não sei se eles podem dizer isso, mas estão bem-vindos a dizer também.
Será uma conversa.
Era também engraçado no ISCTE apanhar também esta dimensão dos estudantes, by the way. Sim. Outra questão, da Natália Rocha. De que forma poderão outros museus ou serviços educativos serem parceiros deste projeto? Portanto, nós já dissemos, é contactar a Raquel Barata e são todos bem-vindos nesta altura, porque não está nada... Este projeto não é um monolito.
E no curso de formação que vamos oferecer também, acho que vai ser aí o grande trigger. The training moment in this spring will be the big trigger for all this starting to be developed.
Exactly. From Lúcia Alves, outra vez, Cristina Luís. Existem já projetos internacionais que envolvam a ciência cidadã e a prescrição social? Portanto, por outras palavras, are there projects that intersect both citizen science and social prescribing? Yes or no? Do you know of any?
Yeah, there are a few examples, not that many, but I give the example of that project, Our Voices from Stanford. It's an example. In Australia, some of this type of connection is being done. There are people there working on that. And I know of one project, European funded one, I think the name was Water Live or something like this, that really connected. It was nature-based social prescription, and they connected citizen science activities with it. Yes, there are few examples, but there are. So in Portugal, I don't know of any. So this would be really interesting. In fact, I should mention that I'm planning to probably make a proposal for the FCT in this call that is open. And it would be really interesting if we could test and analyze this. And so we have plenty of people here that could collaborate in this.
Absolutely.
And try to test this.
Yes.
It's a great opportunity now because it's open until the 10th of March. So we have a few days. But
let's get some money. Because we have none. So let's get some money for this. Yeah. Exactly. Very good.
We include ISTA and of course the museum and Santa Casa, and it would be really nice to.
It would be really nice. Yes, absolutely. Let's see more questions. Well, there is. Of course, lots of people are very interested. They showed interest. They have, been grateful for the initiative. Excellent initiative. Congratulations from Paul Marques. But I think that there is the Wool Museum. So I mentioned that o Museu dos Lanifícios da Universidade da Beira Interior, na Covilhã, who will contact us. And I think that's it. I think there is no other question. I don't know if the panel has anything else to say. Well, I think we have progressed so much. Thank you, really, because I have not been following, as much as I wanted, what Raquel and the team has been doing, and I'm really proud of your work. It's fantastic. And it's open, it's transparent, it's out there in the city, in the community, research community, and I'm sure we will collect many fruits from working together, especially because we're doing this, I think, rightly, right, with consolidating the partnership, the infrastructure, offering training, and doing the evaluation and the research. So I think this is very nice. And thank you all. Thank you especially Raquel for, coordinating this. And I think that if we have nothing else at this point, we will put below the video description the contact. There's always the website where you can contact us, and through us any of our partners, because we will absolutely forward. And I hope to see you again, and I hope that we have more things to offer in favor of providing access to culture, first of all, diminishing these inequalities that exist in terms of social inequalities, in terms of health inequalities, and inequalities to access of the structures of society. So that's it. Well, thank you so much. And we're going to interrupt. Thank you all the people who have been seeing us on YouTube, and we'll be here